Now today in the shop we worked on our MT09 Evil Twins windshield. We got it wet sanded out. I did an extensive amount of time laying out what I thought would be an appropriate trim. I tried to share how I made the pattern and how it evolved, how I downsized it and got the angles and the edges correct, that what I was happy with it anyway. And I ultimately took advantage of the fact that it was a paintable day, got the trim painted, got it backmasked, and got the clear on it. And I did not expect to do that early in the day, but the weather played out in our favor for a change, and anytime the weather plays out in my favor, I like to take full advantage of that day to paint. So today, Luciano was here while I was out at BJ's. He picked up his tank and his paint. He left a rug for me for the garage. We could use an extra rug in here. These rugs, and believe me, if you put 2 or 3 or 5 layers, as long as your head doesn't hit the ceiling, it's more comfortable and warmer in the winter to work on it, and that's for sure. So anyway, what I want to try to do today, I have the windshield. I put it down by the heating vent before I went to BJ's. It's drying up. I'll be able to do some 2000 grit sanding and lay out the trim. And I want to explain how I'd like to do that trim. In my mind, I haven't finalized it yet, but I want to just go through the process before I actually lay it out. So Turbo Steve's part dried up beautifully. I don't know if he's out getting clear now or he's going to go this afternoon, I'm not sure. But that's in the bank, that dried up beautifully. Now to me it's important when you lay out a paint job, everything is supposed to match. I like it anyway. Not everybody agrees with that, of course, but all of this is subjective. But I like to have, I call these arrowheads, I like to have when I laid this out, I did this with the help of John Pothier over about 1,000 photo shoots, photo ops, I mean. And when we'd exchange pictures, he'd modify them with Photoshop and we'd go back and forth. And this was bigger, that's smaller. But I think what was important at the end, we mixed this one color of gold paint. So basically everything matches. Now we know on the MT09 I'm going to use the same paint, the same pigment in a clear paint so that the trim will, and it's a pretty good match to the tank. I don't know if it's exact. I haven't been able to hold it back to back, but it's a shiny and it's very close. So this should be a very nice when I'm done with it. And I wanted to have a little bit of trim on a windshield. Then what if that happens and I like it, I can come back to the other windshield and the next time I remount this, put similar or different trim on this, add the Yamaha sticker, take it away. I have an extra Yamaha sticker, by the way. And so it's going to give me a lot of choices, and that's what Evil Twins are all about, choices. The whole idea of an Evil Twin is to be able to take a bike you already have, you already enjoy, you're already using it, and over the course, maybe in my case, of a winter, change it into a totally different bike. Never have to go back to motor vehicles, and you still have the feeling of having a new bike. And even this bike that has a whole different set of bodywork, that just works. And Luciano is painting his secret new bike that he bought. He didn't want me to see it till it's painted, so we'll see that soon enough. One of the defining features of the MT09 is this paint job that, and by the way, this paint on this tank is just beautiful. You cannot feel the paintwork, the stickers, whatever this is, however they did it, it doesn't matter. It's buried and clear beautifully, and they really did a nice job. So it's this, I don't want to have another MT09. We already have that logo, and it's painted to match the wheels, but I want to mimic this where I have a stripe that ends in a point, and I want the aspect ratio of everything to be very similar, so you immediately identified it. That matches the windshield trim. And getting everything to match is always job one, because the objective is so it looks like the factory might have done it. So what I have is an ordinary piece of office paper, and I'm just going to make what I think is a pretty good replication of this. And I don't have to have it exact, because I can do it from eye. And that's pretty much, I'm going to cut this out and make sure I've got the shape I want. It is pretty simple, cut and dry. We have, that angle is not critical because we're going to probably modify it, but to have this at least a starting point, I want to start with exactly what I have here. And once I have this replicated, And I've got the angles really close. I'll measure that cut piece because I'm going to have to shrink this down. It's not going to be in this proport, but I want to get the proportion right. I want to get the aspect ratio right. And that's why having a paper pattern like this is a good place to start, because it's given me a rough idea of how this is going to play out. And having that mimicked in on the windshield was one of the things I thought that would be in keeping with making it look like the factory might have made this bike. Now we can be in the cellar where it's a lot warmer than it is out here. I want to pull that rug in. I'm not going to have time to change that right now, but thank you, Luciano, for the rug. We've had this one for quite a while, and the two blue ones came from the neighbors across the street. They had a garage sale and nobody bought them, so they donated it to me for free. And you think rugs aren't an important thing, and I thought of Dale, and Dale's got this fabulous barn, great, and I think laying on that concrete, oh my God, in the winter. Now, Ray Straub had a great tip, and whenever he would have to work on his car in the driveway, and my friend Frank Straub, the late Frank Straub, they always had a piece of rug to lay down when they were changing the oil or doing any work. And I decided when I did this garage up, John DeTavio carpeted the whole garage for me when he was 88 years old. So for right now, I'm just going to bring that into the garage, and we got a bright sunny day here. Maybe we'll definitely get this painted today if things go right. But you never know. Every day's been different since we opened up this bed and breakfast. So the first thing before I even lay out tape, I want to get that sanded with some 2000 grit. That'll just make laying out the tape a little bit easier. And this is Indasa. I always want to put this on, because when Mark Morgan found this sandpaper, boy did we have good luck with it on his project, and I've used it ever since. 2000 grit Indasa. Rhino Wet, and you can buy it. It's the red line, and you can buy it off the internet. Now, wet sanding out this before I put the trim on. A lot of people would have just put the trim right on top of the paint. However, because we paint on the windy days here, there's a little bit of dust in the paint, and because we're painting the trim silver, the dust would show on the silver. So I really took the extra time. This added a couple hours to the job, just that I wanted to do it this way. And I wanted to have the part perfectly clean and dry and no fingerprints or anything on it when I was ready to lay out that trim. Okay, so it's totally flat sanded out with 2000 grit. Normally we would just go ahead and buff this out now, but I want to put the trim on and then one more thin coat of clear, because I want to bury the trim in clear. That's sanded out beautifully. So I started this off with just an idea I had in my mind of how I could make this match the tank. I had the vision of what I wanted to do, but I had to get the size right. So what I did, I made it, in the first time I did it, I made it very oversized, bigger. It was actually the same size as it was on the tank. And then I kept downsizing it, and then I had to change that little chip that's in the front. And in the end, I had the basic idea what I wanted, but I didn't have it fine-tuned yet. Now, when you start with a picture you have in your mind, that's all very well and good, but then the hard part is you got to make it happen. And it's hard on a thing like this that has a bar going right down the middle. You've got to make sure it's exactly equal, that it's symmetrical. One side isn't wider, thicker, going upward, going downward. It looks real quick and easy. Now, many, many years of building model airplanes and laying out and designing paint jobs for model airplanes, but I realize, I know this is the better part of a work day, just to get this, that you're happy. Now, I'm really comfortable doing this. Again, I've said that before, but the whole thing with any of this is the patience and being willing to go back over and over and over and over until you have that vision in your mind. The reason is because once you put this on the bike, and once that trim is painted, if it's even 1/8 of an inch crooked, I'm going to know it anyway. Now, Turbo Steve will know it, and Luciano will know it. So being very, very meticulous right at this point in time, I just was willing to pay the price and do this over and over, have another cup of coffee, do it again, pull up the tape again over and over. But I wanted it to be right before I paint that. Well, that took a long time to get that, with these being the right aspect ratio and getting that slight taper in it, and going back and forth, and trying to get it centered. And that, see, when you run, I want to show this. It's be a good tip. Let me, whoop, get something straight here. I didn't think that's what we put. If you run something at 90 degrees up here, I want to see those 2 points disappear at the same time. I'm laying this out, and that may look relatively easy to do until you go to do it. Now, backmasking with tin foil, and thank you very much. The late Walt Prey, Custom Car Guru, shared that with us, and a supermodeler, of course. That technique has made backmasking just a lot more fun than it would be in the old days when we used to use magazine paper and newspaper and whatever. The tin foil is a really useful trick for sure. And once again, using a hot glue gun just to make a handle, something I can hold apart. When you're done, you can just take a razor blade and cut that hot glue right off. It's in a spot that you don't really see anyway, but this way you're able to hold it. Now what I need to do now is mix up a little bit of the paint. And I've got a little bit pre-mixed here, but I need to have a little bit more. With the paste pigment, I'm going to mix up a little bit of this. This is the paint. This will dry in a half an hour, 45 minutes, and I'll be able to put the clear on. And the one part of this project that was so eye-opening was how different some of these silver colors are. And this is just clear paint that has no pigment in it. But I need to mix up, well, at least an ounce or so just for that trim. And I want to have a little bit left over, of course. I've got some pigment in there. That's why I marked all of these when we were doing the test. And by the way, that whole test is on a previous video. You can key it in, paint testing, of course. Take a little bit of the paste pigment. We're going to have to strain this paint carefully. Now, needless to say, all these test paints, there's a lot of trial and error involved in it. We were pretty lucky with doing that test day, and I looked back at that RD wheel. What a good investment that was. And from that came the MT09 wheels, and I think, at least from the comments I've gotten on YouTube, I think most people thought they were okay. Now, a little tip I use is on the Harbor Freight guns is to put some masking tape around the joint of the cap, just so when you're shaking it, you don't get any coming out. Now, I wanted to show this, that I had just put a new color in the gun and cleaned the gun. I ran some acetone through it because I wanted this to be an exact match of the color. I didn't want to have it pick up anything residual that was in the gun. And then I had to refine tune it because each paint mix, the viscosity can be a little different. The temperature you're painting in can be a little different. So each time I do this requires a little fine tuning. You notice if you look at the table has been fine tuned quite a bit. But that to get it right and spray a part of the table before you ever do the part, or if you don't have a table like that, to have just some test piece to fine tune the gun. And I put a lot of that information on yesterday's video, and I'm going to do it in the future when I do that answering questions video that I'm already working on, probably a week or two from now. But getting that silver on there and knowing that it's going to have to dry for a half hour, 45 minutes, I was in great shape. Yes, I'll be up by a heating vent while I have another cup of coffee, and I'll get the clear ready, and that'll have to be, I guess I shouldn't even mix the clear till I see that, pull that back masking off, make sure it's perfect, and if it is, we'll put some clear on it. One nice thin coat. So while that paint is drying, I thought I'd see how Luciano's rug, I pulled some of these bikes out of here and see if I can use it. I'm sure I can use it. Just a question of how I'm going to do it. This is going to give me a good opportunity to clean some of the residual stuff that winds up on the rug all the time from working on a bike. And believe me, the rug's in a garage. And a lot of people laugh at that and they think, oh, that's silly or something. Well, you know what? When that concrete is cold, and maybe I'm just unique that I don't like laying on cold concrete when I'm working on a bike or cleaning. Now, this is a true story. The last time Luciano donated a rug, there was a little bit of dog hair on it. And I vacuumed up with a shop vac. Of course, he had 3 German Shepherds at the time. But what was funny is there was so much hair in the vacuum, I thought I heard it bark. Oh, this is fine. You know, this is the thing a lot of people miss. If you're laying on concrete, and I don't know how Dale does it unless he's got Jay Leno doing it for him. The more layers of carpet you can put down, up to a point. Now the only thing that's really dangerous, and this is what I was really trying to share, I shared it with Jose, and I fell into this trap before. When you have one of the lifts, and I have a lift over here of course, I had the bike up, when it's on carpeting, it gets a little, it's mushy. So if you have a, well, you'll figure it out when a bike falls on you, that's for sure. The idea is to figure it out before the bike falls on you. And I did, to my credit. But when that lift was on, I had 3 layers. There's a layer underneath that black carpet too. And it was mushy. It was like being on rubber, soft tires or something. Anyway, Luciano, that worked great. I think I'll just vacuum it up, see if there's any more. This looks fine to me. By the way, it looks better and better as the temperature gets colder and colder and the raw concrete gets colder and colder. That's for sure. I love when somebody comes over to visit and they knock on the door and Karen will say, "Oh, Wendy's outside vacuuming up his garage." I think that's pretty cool. This is funny. My friend Charlie, who has given me Augustus, he calls this my boutique. Charlie, it's not a boutique. I need things to give hairdo and some foot massages and you know, but it's not really a boutique. But if I had a motorcycle dealership, I'd name it Wendy's Boutique in your honor. Well, I'm assuming by now that paint will be dry and we can pull off the back masking and shoot the clear. Oh, now it's time to see if we get that masking off and get the clear on, get it out here in the garage to dry. I will count this as a killer day. A very, very good day. I can't wait to see how that mimic that I did on the windshield, if that's going to work. If it doesn't, guess what? We have another windshield. But I really think that's going to work. So pulling a back mask off, of course, always use a hairdryer. And if the paint, like this paint's only really a day old, so I didn't want to take any chance on pulling up some paint or having a problem. Heat is always your friend. You never go wrong, and cold is your biggest enemy when you're trying to pull tape off. So in this case, the part was drying up by a heating vent for a few minutes and got the part a little warm and then extra heat with the hairdryer. And so I finally got to see what this trim is going to look like before I put the clear on, and I think it came out pretty good. Now it was already getting late in the day, but I wanted to get the clear on this so it could dry for a day or two. It's got to dry out in the garage overnight and then maybe a day or two up by a heating vent. I don't know, because we really have a lot of clear on this part, more than I normally put on. But I wanted those silver stripes, those little mimic stripes, to be buried in clear. So when I buff this out, this is going to be a focal point of the motorcycle at some point in time, and it's a unique, one-of-a-kind. And by day's end, I was just happy to see that my evil twin windshield and my standard windshield. I'm going to have choices when it comes to evil twinning this bike out. The paintwork is flawless. That'll buff out. And I like the way the trim came out. It was worth taking the time. Now this was quite a productive day, and I always think a windshield adds a lot to a bike. It's if it's right, it really adds a nice little dimension. If it's wrong, sometimes you see a windshield that belongs on a go-kart or something. I don't know. But anyway, we had one super productive day today. I'm really excited about seeing how that's going to buff out tomorrow or the next day. Depending on how that dries up out in the garage, temperature's supposed to go way down again tonight, so maybe it'll need an extra day up by the heating vent. But we have other projects to work on, and Turbo Steve's supposed to stop by tomorrow to pick up his part. So there's never a time when we don't have a project. So I like to end each workday by looking over the bench, see what our next project is going to be here. We still have side covers to make. I want to make one more windshield for the evil twin part of that. I don't know which one I'm going to use yet, but at the end of every day I have another activity, and I have to confess what I like to do. I go to my computer, do the email, and I like to look back at some of the days we've had. Now this is a day, I think it's 2013, but I'm not sure. The file didn't say it. Stuff on my computer. And there's the drag race king of Perkins right there on the left. And what happens is these old pictures, a lot of times I'm looking at pictures, and it happened tonight. I'm looking at pictures, I'm looking, and all of a sudden, oh my God, look at that. There's a bike I haven't seen in a while, or something I remember, or something that was pretty cool, or whatever. Oh, look at the car. Now, I don't know who owns this car. I don't know the person, but I know he's got some old Harleys, and he used to come up here with this, and there's always something going on here. And this is what's nice about having a lot of pictures. You look back and you try to remember, what year was that? What day was that? What afternoon did we do that? And you know, I look back, and to me, every one of these days that I've made a file on my computer, I think there was a day we usually would meet up at Choppers. We'd go for a ride. We'd go up to Perkins. Now, Perkins in the last, I don't know how many years, there's Luciano's 999. And what would happen is we'd not know, the park wouldn't be crowded early in the morning, and you didn't have no problems with anything. Now, since the pandemic, people come up from, I guess, different areas, and they get ants in their pants. They have to go up there. And it's so crowded. It's the last couple of years. Maybe that's going to change soon. There's always the Harley crowd. They always have something interesting, and they have their radios playing. And one of these guys with the big front wheel, I wonder how they handle with that big front wheel. And there's always somebody's bike. There's always something that I really haven't seen before. And there's always something that you see a couple of times, and then all of a sudden you realize the guy becomes your friend. So, and that's basically how we met Bob NEVOLA, basically how I met Luciano, basically how I met Glenn. We all wound up at some point in time on Perkins, and there's Bob NEVOLA. Oh my God, there's Bob's bike. And there's a guy here that, I don't know if this is the one, he's got one of these Can-Ams with a wheelchair. This might be the guy, but I'm not sure. He carries a wheelchair with him. I guess he's handicapped. And there's some custom bikes, some old bikes, some new bikes, expensive bikes, people with money, people with no teeth. There's some of everything. And a Valkyrie. There's some, I think Vince bought a Valkyrie, if I remember. And this belonged to a gal who did this all herself. She was an artist. Her and her husband both rode. She did it all, cleared over it. A pretty unique thing. But it was something different every weekend, and I looked forward so much years ago. And God bless you, Bob, the late Bob NEVOLA there talking to Luciano. And the days, I don't know what would be the right way to even describe the atmosphere. Some days was so much fun. You can see it's not even crowded. Go up there now and you can't even park, you know. So, but anyway, that may come back. We hope it does. And hey, it's the friends you have in motorcycling that make it all worthwhile anyway. And again, I talked to Luciano tonight, and he's got secret stuff going on with this new bike he has. I'm not going to let the cat out of the bag, but it's a twin-cylinder bike, and he's got a spare gas tank for it already. It's going to be the mystery bike. And he says nobody in our crowd has one of these. So, I don't know. I don't know. Luciano is an unpredictable gentleman, that's for sure. Maybe I am too. I don't know. Anyway, we post something up every day. We hope you enjoy sharing it with us. So if you enjoyed the video, I hope you share it with your friends. And of course, I hope, most of all, that we'll see you tomorrow. And thanks again for watching.